Our guest is Abeeb Oladele. Abeeb Oladele is a seasoned senior mobile engineer and tech lead at Stears Insights, and he's known for his expertise in native and cross-platform mobile development. His professional journey ranges from across industries like digital media, data and intelligence, edTech, fintech, blockchain, and video streaming, with notable organizations like Stears Insights, PlutoTV, Pylons, Canary Tech Limited, and West Africa Examination Council. If you are Nigerian, that's WAEC, or if you are West African, that's WAEC, amongst others. His academic background includes a BS in Computer Science from the National Diploma University of Nigeria and a National Diploma in Electrical Engineering from Yaba College of Technology. He's armed with a diverse technical skill set. Abeeb also continues to push the boundaries of technology with his passion for solving technical problems and commitment to excellence. So our guest here today is really packed. Please say hello. Let me see some drum rolls in the chat for our guest. Please join me in welcoming our guest here today. Say something in chat to welcome our guest, and then I'm going to pin him up here. Well, welcome, Abeeb. Thank you for joining us today. Let me make sure that we can all see Abeeb.
Thank you, Emeka. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Abeeb. We are really excited to get into your journey as a mobile engineer. But before we get started on that, we would actually like to know you a bit more personally before we go into your professional journey. So we're going to take some rapid fire questions and try to get to know you on a personal level a bit before we jump into your professional journey so far. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent. So our first rapid fire question: what's a fun fact? This is sort of related to the question we asked at the beginning of this call. What's a fun fact about you that we'll not be able to find on
LinkedIn? I think it would be that I'm a very shy and introverted person. Like, you hardly see me out there. Yeah.
No, thank you very much. I would not have, and maybe I would have guessed that. I don't know. I probably would not have guessed that. The second question is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, I think that would be the power to be able to read mind, ability to read mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very. If you relate with that one, please share in chat. Or if you have answers to these questions yourself, share your answers in chat. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? The second rapid fire question is, let me check my notes. What's the last song you listened to on repeat?
That would be Cavemen, Anita. There's anyone that listens to Cavemen here? Yeah, boy band from Nigeria.
All right, I'm taking notes. I'll check that out after this call. The next question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? It doesn't have to be professional advice.
I think
can you hear me okay? How does that sound? How does this sound now?
Yeah.
Better. Okay, great. So the next question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? This could be professional advice, personal. What's the best one you've received so
far? Yeah, this is a personal one. For anyone who has seen the Bollywood movie 3 Idiots.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, so there's this quote from the movie where the guy, I think his name is Rohan or can't remember his name now. He said, chase excellence and success would follow you hands down. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Wow.
I saw it while I was schooling at Yaba College of Technology, and that's sticked with me throughout my life.
Hmm. That's a really good way to think about that. Thank you very much for sharing that. I really like that. And the last rapid fire question that I have for you is, what's your favorite hobby outside of work? So outside of work, what's something that you usually be caught doing?
I think surfing social media, um, Twitter to be specific, and then until recently, TikTok. I've gotten hooked to on TikTok now. Basically, just you can't find me creating content or doing anything, just swiping, and yeah.
That's many of us at this point, caught doom scrolling on TikTok. Thank you very much. It's good to hear a bit more about you before we dive into the very, very serious stuff. But thank you so much again, Abeeb, and thank you for joining us. To everyone on this call right now, we just asked Abeeb a couple of rapid fire questions to hear a bit more about him on a personal level before we dive into his professional career. We'll be asking you some questions now as we go. If you do have questions around becoming a mobile engineer or becoming an engineer in general, please share them in chat. We'll get to a section where we take all the questions in chat and we take them the way that they come in. So we'll prioritize the questions that come in first when we get to that section. Well, welcome again, Abeeb. Let me get to my question. So first things first, can you share a bit about your journey of becoming a mobile engineer, from your educational background to your first job in the field?
Okay. All right. So when I finished my national diploma in electrical engineering, there's this program where you have to go through industrial experience. Here in Nigeria, we call it IT, industrial training, or CWES. So yeah, so I happened to intern at an electronic manufacturing company here in Lagos. Then I wasn't exposed to the world of software. I just use computers as an everyday user, right? So I interned at the company. I initially interned as a system integrator. Basically, you do a lot of technical things. You receive phone calls, you mess with some database table. In retrospect, I just understood that it was a database. I was just told, oh, when you have this complaint, you go to search for this person's name and you make this change. Right. Couple of years later, I found out that I was basically messing with a large relational database. Um, yeah, so that was where it started from. And then during my interning, I guess the chairman of the organization happens to be someone with a lot of foresight. It's just, I guess he noticed me, and then he basically just moved me to this geeky department. So then I just be like, oh, nobody wants to join this department as an intern, but go, I think you would do well. That was how I happened to join the department filled with engineers. We basically call them engineers, not software engineers, programmers, sorry, say programmers. I joined there. That was where I learned how to write code using C programming language. I didn't really write much of stuff that I wrote weren't like so valuable to the company. I'm just there to learn. So I learned C, wrote programs around or to mock ATM machines or programs to solve simultaneous equation, just basic stuff, right? Then after I was done with the interning, I was fortunate enough to I got staffed, so I became an employee of the company, a full-time employee. Then I moved to another department where they do software development. which is in another location entirely. They do software development, build web apps with Java, Spring Framework, I think then desktop applications with Java Swing. For me, as at that time, software development was basically just another office 9 to 5 job. So just go and write whatever you want to write, then close by 5, go home with headaches because I hardly understand what was going on. Right. So yeah, I did that for some time. Along the line, I was like having a grab of it to say, okay, now I know how to build like management system. I know what a database is. I know how to build desktop applications. Right. I think that was in some time around 2016-ish. Then I was just doing 9 to 5. At some point, then I moved to West African Examinations Council as an assistant examinations officer. For a couple of months, I didn't do software development because I was like, okay, maybe I need to leave this headache thing and do a normal 9 to 5 job. So I was an assistant examinations counsel, an assistant examinations officer. I was overseeing like basic IT operations in the organization. Just, oh, we want to open an email, my email is not opening, all those kind of thing. Somehow, I found my way into the programming department again because I was bored of just doing basic, my computer, my printer, troubleshooting. Found myself in the programming department again. Then that was when I sort of cemented my experience with mobile development, web development, where I actually had software products that are in production that are out there. So that was when it started getting interesting for me. Then along the line, somehow, thanks to my hobby of surfing social media, I found out that there was a tech community, right? So there was a tech community. The first community that I joined was Andela Learning Community. And then 2 I think I learned about Andela when it was ALC 1.0. And then when it was ALC 2.0, I joined, I opted for their learning community, which is DLC, as a mobile engineer, as an intermediate. Being an intermediate, you'd learn and then you also get to mentor beginners, right? After the program, being like a top, I guess I was like one of the top candidates. I was awarded a certification exam from Google, which I took. The certification has expired if you ask me right now, mom. Yeah, I got, and that sort of like launched me into mobile proper. That sort of like made me focus on mobile apps development. So yeah, from there, I think sometimes in 2021 2021, I left WAEC. I joined Pylons. A year later, I joined Stears. I've been at Stears for more than 2 years now. So while at Stears, I also worked for, yeah, yes.
Thank you very much for that. So your journey is very, very interesting. And it's particularly interesting with how, a lot of the times you weren't specifically doing software development, but at some point you were kind of moved to that point, right, where you have to at some point try to build something. And then you talked about also getting into the Andela community, and going from there. But thank you very much for sharing that. For a few people, or for some people, mobile engineering might seem new. Like it might be the first time you're hearing that. What can you tell us, like, what does that mean? What does mobile engineering mean? And is it different from software engineering?
Yes, I would say mobile engineering is a little bit different from software engineering. Software engineering is basically a broader discipline, right? Software engineering is in lay term is basically the design, development, and maintenance of software application. And a software, as we all know, a software can run on a lot of devices, like your laptop as the desktop software, on the web. There are cloud applications, there are mobile applications, whatever devices that can run a software, right? It's a lot broader. Then for mobile engineering, you're basically doing software engineering that is specific to mobile devices, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. To our students on the call, we'll begin taking questions from the chat in a couple of minutes. So if you have questions, please share them there. We'll take them in the order that they have coming. But thank you so much, Abeeb, for sharing that. Now we've talked a bit about software engineering and mobile engineering and what that means. As someone who has been a mobile engineer for a while, what programming languages would you and frameworks would you recommend that aspiring mobile engineers, learn that would be useful to them as mobile engineers?
Okay. I'll say it depends, right? Because for me, programming languages and frameworks are basically tools, right? They are basically tools. They are tools that as an engineer you can use. So for me, I like to advise people to try out things. That is how I learned. Try out, for example, like for mobile engineering, do you want to do native? Do you want to do cross-platform? If you want to do native, you just know, okay, for Android native, you need to learn Kotlin. For iOS, you need to learn Swift, Objective-C. So for native, you have multiple options. React Native, Flutter, Iconic, whatever, Ionic rather, whatever. So try options and see which you are the one you are more comfortable with. To be honest, most of these tools are mostly built around the same basic the same basic principle under the hood. So once you find one that you're comfortable with, try to learn the basics with it, be comfortable with it. You can easily switch, right? So that is, I wouldn't want to say, if I would tell you Flutter, because I would be biased if I tell you Flutter, but Flutter is quite easy if you can get the hang of JavaScript. That is quite easy, and Flutter can be friendly. Put it that way. Flutter
All
can be
right.
friendly. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for sharing that. So I have one more question before I pass it to Labake, my colleague here, who will take the questions that we have from chat. And the question is, can you share one of your favorite project or most memorable one that you've worked on as a mobile engineer?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be at Canary Tech, right? For two reasons, for personal reasons and then for professional reasons. Personal reasons because I got to work with people that have become a major part of my career right now, and even personal friends. So yeah, that's one. For professional reasons, I built at Canary Tech, we were able to build an agency banking application for those in Nigeria, those POS guys. So we were able to build an application that runs on Android POS, even a mobile POS that just has like a keypad and then you operate with an Android device. So we're able to build that with Node.js backend, Flutter as the front end. But the reason why it is quite memorable for me professionally was that it sort of like exposed me to a lot of things, a lot of new knowledge, a lot of new things to learn, like interacting with Nibs API. At some point, most engineers think, oh, okay, you can call a third-party REST API or whatever, but with Nibs, it is an entirely different communication protocol. There's an ISO standard for communicating and stuff. So that's sort of like exposed me to, oh, okay, now I know when you put your card into it, these are the magics that happens behind the scene. I had to work with Bluetooth printers and stuff. So yeah, that sort of like opens me to a lot. And then the impact as well. You know, people who are using what you've built sort of like creates a real life value to people. There are people who use this POS as that's basically their major source of livelihood, puts food on their table. And sometimes when you just think about it, you just like, oh, okay. So this is just more than writing, pushing code or type. You have like real life impacts that you're making in people's lives. So
Thank you very much for sharing that. And I really like the lessons that you shared there. One being that the project definitely work with people that, even right now are instrumental parts of the career. And I think that's a very important lesson that is like you're going to do a lot of things, but you're going to do that with people. And so like definitely honoring the relationships and building relationships with people, I think is very important lesson. But also the other thing that you mentioned is impact, right? We had spoken to a professional one time, and they had said, oh, you can know how to code the entire thing in this entire world, but if it's not solving like people's problems, if it's not impacting people's lives, then like of what use is the skill that you have? But thank you very much for sharing that with me. I can go on and on, but that's all the questions I have for you for now. Labake will come up now and take the questions that we've had. Chat, I see a few questions are popping in right now. Hi, Labake, let me make sure that you are here. Let me know when you're ready, Labake.
Yes, I'm ready. And yes, I mean, I truly agree with you about solving the world's most pressing problems, and you should do something with a purpose. And yeah, thank you so much, Abeeb, for sharing your insights with us. I'm really inspired by your journey, that you were committed to learning and also seeking opportunities, which is very admirable. And so I have some questions here from our students, and I'll go ahead to asking you. But then just know everyone, if you have any questions, please just share in the chat box and we'll send it to Abeeb to answer the questions. So the first question I have for you is from Prince Will. He says, how would you approach learning if you were to start again?
Okay. Yeah, I would say by doing, right? You learn how to when I'm trying to, what was this quote? Okay, I can't remember. But you learn by doing, really. That's one lesson that I've learned along the way. Don't spend all your time reading a lot of, oh, I'm reading this article, I'm reading, trust me, most of them, you don't need to cram a lot of them. By doing, for me, if I want to pick up a new language, I start with to do or not taking up. Once I am able to do that, trust me, without too much headache, I'm diving into it, you will learn along the way. So just the more you practice, the better you get at it, right? Don't think, oh, maybe I've not read it well. I've not read this thing well enough to start to build something. No. When I was learning to build, when I was learning Java for desktop, I read a lot, read How to Java. I don't know if anyone knows about that book. How to Java, I read it like almost half before I was confident enough to start. That still does not mean that my experience with it was smooth. I just had to, I realized that you learn more by doing. So, right, just keep building. Whatever silly idea you have, build it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you know what the Yorubas say, keep things in your left hand so that you you don't get it like, so it doesn't get missing. So principle, let's keep this in our left hand. We start by doing. Have the next questions from Oladipupo. It says native or cross-platform. Which would you recommend to learn first and why?
Okay. I won't give you a definite answer, trust me. So it is into, do you want, at some point you need to look at the markets, how the talent market is and the demand for your skill set, right? If you ask me, if you look at I think generally the word tech market right now, especially when it comes to mobile, for startups that are just starting out, they want to optimize their fund. They want to spend their fund on what will give them the most value. They want to iterate very fast with less fund. That is why you see most of new startups that are just starting out, they go for cross-platform because they know they can hire somebody like me, a cross that is currently focused on cross-platform, and have two apps for two platform, iOS, Android, with just my salary. But if they want to go the native route, that means they need to hire someone that does Android, maybe me, and then another person that does iOS. Do you see? So that makes startups love like cross-platform. Then when you get to a particular point, maybe like, oh, now you're now a Spotify, you are an Apple, for example, that is when you have enough money to say, okay, maybe some of these trade-offs that we've been having with using cross-platform frameworks, maybe it is now time for us to go the native way, and then they have enough human resources, they have enough funds to have two separate teams that would build the same product on different platforms. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I'm sure it does. Thank you so much, Abeeb. Okay, the next question that I have for you is from Peter. So he says, I became quite proficient in front-end web development a few years ago. He mentions a tech stack that is convenient with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and VueJS. He's asking, what would you recommend he get started with professionally?
Okay. Because you already know how to write HTML, CSS, VueJS, I would say you should go for React Native as a cross-platform, right? If you want to go native, you don't have any choice. You don't have a lot of choice, to be honest. Android, you write Kotlin and Jetpack Compose or XML. iOS, you write Swift and Swift UI. So you don't have choices. You don't have like much choice on the native side. But for cross-platform, because of the experience that you have with JavaScript, you can try out React Native. But if it gets too hard, come to Flutter. Thank you.
Peter, so I hope you're listening. If it gets too hard, please go to Flutter. Okay, the next question is from Elijah. He says, is there a big difference between software engineering and mobile engineering? I think you mentioned that kind of before, but if you can just share a bit more light on it. So
yeah. So sorry if I get the question right. Is there like much difference?
So it's saying that is there a big difference? Like what's
Okay,
that big difference between them?
To be honest, not there. Like the difference are not much. To be honest, it's just like I said, basic principle. If I'll compare myself and maybe a web front-end engineer, for example, to say, okay, both of us will use Git as our code versioning system. We know we have to build models. You need to use something for your UI to render your views. You need to make API calls, so you need HTTP clients. So all you just need, if you understand those basic and stuff to do, all you just need is, okay, I'm using React Native, or I'm building with Vue.js. What do I use to make, what do I need to make an HTTP request, for example? With Vue.js, most people would use Axios, or you just use HTTP fetch. On the mobile side, I know, for example, for Flutter, I need to use a particular package. If you are writing Android native, for example, you know the package to use, right? So it's basically, the concepts are like closely related, right? You just need to now ask yourself, okay, for this specialty that I am, what do I need? How do I go about it? Right. So, yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you. Yes, you're correct. Okay, so this next question is by Chris. So he's asking that front end versus back end, which is better to learn and master?
I don't think anyone is better than the other. It's just a preference thing. I have friends who are back-end engineers. I have friends who are front-end engineers. It just depends on where you want to be, right? If you are the type that likes to take glory, for example, you want to be a front-end person, because if you're a back-end person, you don't have anything to show. Don't just say, oh, I'm the back-end engineer for Stears app. There's no evidence. Do you get? But if you are a front-end person, you can easily show, okay, I built this colors, you get. And then it depends on what excites you. Their backend, for people like backend engineers, they are excited about databases, how you design database, optimization around response time. How do I design this API, response structure, data structure, all those kind of things. They're excited about it. But if you are excited about, this user experience is not, if you are passionate about user experience, how things look and all those, just go for front end. But if you are excited about the underground things that nobody is asking you about, go for backend, please.
Yeah, so it all depends on what you actually want, and you should go for something that you're really passionate about. Okay, so I have this question from Victor Onaja. He's asking that, as someone who wants to be a professional cross-platform mobile engineer, is having a MacBook a necessity?
Okay, so in the past, yes, because thanks to Apple and the Apple ecosystem, in the past, you can't build for iOS if you do not have a Mac. You can't build for iOS on a Windows laptop or Ubuntu laptop. But now, thanks to thanks to continuous delivery platforms now, right? You can, for example, like CircleCI, GitLab, workflow, and stuff. You can create an image of a MacBook and then just run it there and get the output. So that way you do not necessarily, but although you still need a Mac to run your test to be sure that, okay, everything works well during development, that everything works well. But if you can find if you're able to build with those continuous deployment platforms and get people to thoroughly test, you'd be fine. But I'll still advise you to get a MacBook so that you can test as a developer, as an engineer.
Yeah, hopefully we'll all get a MacBook very soon, and looking forward to that. Okay, so I have this question from Jimmy. It says, as a senior mobile developer, I'm interested in your perspective on progressive web apps. And what are your thoughts on potential impacts and viability compared to native mobile apps in today's development landscape?
Okay. I would like to first say that progressive web apps are not mobile applications, right? Progressive web apps are basically just bookmarking your web URL and just making it look like an app, right? So I don't think they do not replace each other. progressive web apps cannot perform like native mobile operations like mobile app would do. So it's just web trying to think they can do mobile, but they are not the same. That would answer your question.
Okay, Jimmy, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I have this question from me to you.
Right.
What do you think sets a great mobile engineer apart from an average one?
Okay. First things first, I'll say be passionate about user experience. Like have this insane passion about users. Right. Don't if you there's this saying that they say the devil is in the details, right? When you are building an app, that is basically the details is what sets you apart from a normal mobile engineer and a very successful and sought after engineer. Your output, the excellence in your output, and how do you measure that? User experience. If I have an app, for example, and I'm trying to log in, I'm getting an error message that I cannot understand. For example, maybe I'm seeing an error message that is about your database is not connecting, blah, blah, blah. As a user, that should be none of my business, right? So as an engineer, we need to be passionate about stuff, about the way you need to be empathetic towards your user. Use your products or your solution that you're building. See what, put yourself in your user's shoes. Anything that is frustrating you would definitely frustrate your user. It is better for you as an engineer if you as an engineer, you are doing the heavy lifting, no matter how inconvenienced it might be, just to make sure that the user is satisfied or whatever user flow they are trying to use on your app goes on smoothly, right? And then please, yeah, I think once you are insane about users, and then your technical skills is you are quite comfortable with whatever language and framework that you're using. I feel the most important thing is being in your user's shoes. That would push you to write better code, in fact, because the users of your code are your teammates, maybe your fellow engineer. You're documenting your code well. So just be insane about what the experience that other people will have with your code, with the application or feature that you're working on. I think that would put you in a good place to be very successful.
Yeah, I truly agree with you about the whole putting your users first. They're very, very important in any single application, and also documenting. Documenting is very, very important. I think I attended a networking event recently with Paystack, and one of the things that they kept mentioning was documenting. It's always very good, and it's a good practice amongst us engineers and coders. Another question that I have for you is, what are the essential skills for someone aspiring to be a successful mobile engineer? It could be the soft skills, like we call it, and the technical skills. Can be both.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. I think you need both, actually. You need both. You need to have a good grasp of the programming language that you're building with, the framework you're using. You need to have a good knowledge of it so that you know what you are capable of doing. Or sometimes the limitation might even be from the framework. But if you are creative, you would be able to like maneuver your way. So you need to have good technical skills. In terms of soft skills, you need to be a critical thinker, right? You need to be creative, trust me, because you solve a lot of problems. Not life problems you get, but you will solve a lot of problems, maybe internal problems that internal to your organization, external problem to users, you solve a lot of problems. And you need to be creative, right? Some of the solutions to some of these problems are not readily available. You have to be creative. I like to divide and conquer any problem to see, okay, this is the problem. How do I break it down? So you need to have that mindset. And then you also need to have the mindset that you need to keep an open mind. Be ready to learn anything, be a lifelong learner, continuous learning as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I really like what you said about continuous learning. It's one of the core values that we have at Kibo. Just keep learning. Like learning never stops. And yeah, you're right. Divide and conquer. I think that whole sentence will stay with me for like a really long time. So I have this question from Michael. He says, is mobile development a saturated field to get into now?
No, I don't think so. It is not. This is the reason why we don't have as much. Trust me, we don't have as much mobile engineers as we have for front-end web engineers, right? So it is not saturated. Right now, we might be experiencing, okay, right now we might be, due to the market's downturn, you might think, okay, maybe there are no opportunities, but there are opportunities. Trust me, there are opportunities. So I would like to just leave it at that.
Okay, okay, so I have this question from Nina. She says, is mobile engineering limited to front end and back end development?
Mobile engineering is more related to front end, but thanks to some platforms, like for example, like Firebase, where platforms that runs like backend as a service. So you really won't need a backend engineer if you are going that route. For example, like Firebase, you can have like a remote database and just make the call, CRUD operation, create, read, updates, whatever, from the mobile app without needing a backend. But that still requires that as a mobile engineer, you need to have some knowledge about how data are being structured, managing database and things like that. But yeah, it's more related to front end. But if you are using a backend as a service, you will be a backend engineer. So
Okay, thank you. So somebody is asking, her name is Olua Nifemi. She says, okay, she's currently learning Python and she wants to be a software engineer, but she doesn't even know where to start from and she needs advice.
okay, you are currently learning Python and you want to be a software engineer. When do you know how to write Python, you just need to choose a particular niche to follow. You might decide to be a full stack engineer. And trust me, learning Python opens you to a world of opportunities. You can be an AI/ML engineer. You can be a data scientist, be a data engineer. Python opens you up to a lot of opportunities. So I guess you just need to make some research about these fields that you can do with Python, and trust me, you are in a good place.
Okay, yeah. So this particular question from Henny, it's really nice because bugs can be really annoying. So it's asking how do you handle bugs in your day-to-day work? Because it can get really frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. So the most important thing is you being able to reproduce the bug. Trust me, you can't fight what you can't see. It's that simple. If you are not able to reproduce the bug, you are just shooting in the dark. Trust me. Once you're able to reproduce the bug, I think you've done like maybe 30 or almost 50% of the work. You already know what the problem is. Know what the problem is before you try to solve it. Right. So once you're able to reproduce, then you can now start looking at your code. Trust me, the computer does not have a mind of its own. That's a mindset for you to keep. Whatever bug is going on, someone wrote it. Is either you wrote it or you don't understand the package or library that you're using. Right? It might be a package issue, maybe your just has that. But if I do issues.get, it will make a post request, right? So once you're able to reproduce, you have a good knowledge of how to reproduce it. You can follow the code flow in your the flow of execution in your code base, and then you can easily pinpoint to say, okay, this is where the issue is. And then depending on how you write your code, that is why it is very important for you to write good code. If you write your code well in such a way that they were they were rightly divided into like functions, you can easily pinpoint to say, okay, this is the function or method that is causing where the bug is, and then you can debug line by line. If it's a package issue, if it's you or any engineer that has written plus instead of minus, you'll say it.
Thank you so much for that advice. Try to reproduce the box, and I hope we've taken that into our left hands, like I've been saying. Okay, so I have this final question from Michael. He says that which framework do you default to when working on a project? Native ones like Android and iOS, or cross platforms, and why?
Sorry, come again with the question. Again.
He's asking which framework do you default to when working on a project? So he's saying native ones like Android and iOS, or cross-platform, and why?
Okay, so right now I default to cross-platform, Flutter, because that is what, for like a couple of years now, that is what I've been writing mostly. But then there are cases where if it's a pet project or just a side project that I just want to, that will start and most likely will not finish, I'll just use Flutter. But if it's based on requirements, you have to follow whatever personal requirements, business requirements, you still have to follow. I would also like to point that even when you're writing cross-platform applications, there are scenarios where you still need to write, you might still be required to write native code, right? I'll give you an example. While I was, if you are working with hardwares, say for example, you want to be able to print using a Bluetooth printer, you want to use a POS, or you want to read NFC tags, for example. Most of those packages most of the libraries are from the manufacturers. Most of them are written with, they are written with native code. You still need to, even as a cross-platform engineer, you still need to communicate with those native libraries, and you have to write native code, trust me. So yeah, so it's just be as flexible as possible.
Thank you so much, Habib, for everything that you shared with us today. And we're grateful that you honored us by coming here today and answered all our questions. We're truly grateful. And thank you so much. I'll be passing it back to Emmy to continue with everything. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Lawake, for that one, and thank you so much, Abeeb. Before we let Abeeb go, there's a very, very important question that actually came up in chat by Godfred. So he says, in recent years or months, there's been massive layoffs of tech workers. How do you stand out or keep your relevance in the company so that you don't get laid off? This is a really important question.
I'll just say be valuable. That does not mean people who were laid off were not valuable. It just depends on, like my manager once said, it depends on your value to the business. to the direction, to the business direction, right? If, for example, some people were laid off by Meta, I think like 2-3 years ago. Some of them were working on maybe new initiative that the business thought, okay, we can do without, right? So it depends on the business goal and whatever you are contributing to it. Trust me, if you are contributing a lot to it, no, I don't think any business wants to lay off people. It's just a situation where we need to make best of whatever fault that we have, right? So hard decisions are to be taken and trade-offs are to be made. So yeah, I think just be as valuable as possible. Make sure you are contributing to the direction or to the overall goal of the business, right? So
Thank you so much for answering that, Abeeb. And I hope, Godfrey, that answers your question, or to everyone else who had the same question around being valuable and protecting your jobs as engineers. Well, thank you so much again, Abeeb. Thank you so much for joining us. I cannot thank you enough. This has been really, really insightful.